Right now, thousands of global deals are happening, all powered by one thing, the US dollar. But how did it become the world's money? After 2 world wars, America became the world's industrial engine, holding the majority of the world's gold reserves. In 1944, the Bretton Woods System made the dollar the global anchor, backed by gold at $35 an ounce. But in 1971, President Nixon ended the gold link. The dollar was now backed by something more powerful: global trust. The 70s brought the Petrodollar System, tying global oil sales to the greenback and cementing its international demand. Today, the dollar is the backbone of finance. But as new currencies rise, the real question is, how long will its power last?
Right now, at this very moment, thousands of deals are happening across the planet. Oil is being sold in the Middle East. Electronics are being manufactured in Asia. Wheat is being shipped across oceans. Governments are negotiating billion-dollar agreements. And behind most of these transactions lies one simple thing: a piece of paper. The United States dollar. A currency printed by one nation, yet trusted by almost every nation. Used in banks, markets, governments, and corporations around the world. From global trade to international reserves, the dollar dominates the financial system in ways no other currency ever has. But this raises an extraordinary question. How did one country's money become the world's money? How did the United States dollar rise to become the most powerful currency on Earth? The answer is a story shaped by war, power, economic strategy, and global trust. To understand how the dollar conquered the world, we have to go back to a time when America was not the center of global finance. In the early 20th century, the world's most powerful currency was not the dollar. It was the British pound. London was the financial capital of the world. The British Empire controlled enormous territories across the globe, and its banks financed international trade. For decades, the pound sterling was the currency that powered the global economy. The United States, although growing rapidly, was still developing its influence on the world stage. But history was about to change everything. In 1914, the world plunged into one of the most devastating conflicts in human history, the First World War. European nations spent unimaginable amounts of money funding armies, building weapons, and sustaining years of brutal warfare. Governments borrowed heavily to support the war effort. Economies were stretched to their limits. But while Europe was suffering destruction and economic exhaustion, the United States was experiencing something very different. American factories began producing weapons, machinery, food supplies, and industrial goods for European nations. Instead of losing wealth, the American economy expanded dramatically. By the time the war ended in 1945, many European countries owed massive debts to the United States. For the first time in modern history, America had become the world's largest creditor nation. Yet the global financial system still revolved around Europe. That would soon change again. In 1939, the world entered another catastrophic conflict, the Second World War. Cities across Europe and Asia were bombed into ruins. Entire economies collapsed. Infrastructure was destroyed. Governments were pushed to the edge of bankruptcy. But once again, the United States remained geographically protected from the devastation. American industry surged to unprecedented levels of production. Factories across the country manufactured tanks, ships, aircraft, and weapons for the Allied forces. The United States became the industrial engine of the war effort. By the time the war ended in 1945, something remarkable had happened. The United States controlled the largest economy on Earth, and even more importantly, it held the majority of the world's gold reserves. With Europe devastated and global economy struggling to recover, The world needed a new financial system.
Gentlemen, the hour demands resolve. Indeed, unity is our greatest weapon. Our forces stand ready.
That moment arrived in the summer of 1944. Representatives from 44 countries gathered at a quiet resort in New Hampshire to design a new global monetary system. This historic meeting would later be known as the Bretton Woods Conference. The goal of the conference was simple but incredibly important: to create a stable financial system that could support global trade and prevent the economic chaos that had contributed to war. After weeks of negotiations, the delegates agreed on a revolutionary system. The United States dollar would become the center of the global financial order. Under the agreement, the dollar would be backed by gold. 1 ounce of gold would equal $35. Other countries would then link their currencies to the dollar. This effectively made the dollar the anchor of the global economy. Because the United States held the majority of the world's gold, nations around the world trusted the dollar as a stable store of value. But the Bretton Woods system created more than just a currency arrangement. It also gave birth to powerful international institutions designed to stabilize the global economy. Among them were the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. These organizations helped countries rebuild after the war and supported global economic growth, and much of their financial activity revolved around the United States dollar. As international trade expanded during the decades following World War II, the dollar became increasingly important. Countries began holding large reserves of dollars. Businesses priced goods in dollars. Banks settled international payments in dollars. The American currency had quietly become the foundation of global commerce. But the system had a problem. As the global economy grew, the demand for dollars increased rapidly. To supply enough dollars for the global economy, the United States had to print more money. Over time, the amount of dollars circulating around the world began to exceed the amount of gold held by the United States. Countries began worrying about whether America could maintain the promise that every $35 could be exchanged for 1 ounce of gold. Some nations began converting their dollars into gold reserves. The pressure on the system intensified throughout the 1960s. Then, in 1971, the United States made a decision that shocked the world. President Richard Nixon announced that the United States would no longer allow foreign governments to exchange dollars for gold. This moment became known as the Nixon Shock. The global gold standard collapsed almost overnight. For the first time in modern history, the world's most important currency was no longer backed by gold. Instead, it was backed by something far less tangible, but incredibly powerful: trust. Many economists expected the dollar to collapse after the end of the gold standard, but the opposite happened. The dollar remained dominant. One reason was the enormous size and stability of the American economy. The United States had the largest financial markets in the world, attracting investors from every continent. Another reason was something even more strategic: oil. During the 1970s, the United States formed agreements with major oil-producing nations. Under these agreements, oil would be sold internationally in United States dollars. This created what became known as the Petrodollar System. Because oil is one of the most essential resources in the global economy, every country needed it, and to buy oil, countries now needed dollars. This created constant global demand for the American currency. Nations accumulated dollars to purchase energy. Central banks stored dollars as reserves. International trade increasingly relied on the dollar as the default currency. Over time, the influence of the dollar grew stronger. Today, the United States dollar dominates the global financial system in ways that few people fully understand. A majority of global foreign exchange reserves held by central banks are still in U.S. dollars. Commodities like oil, gold, and agricultural products are priced in dollars. International loans and bonds are often issued in dollars.
The American currency has become the backbone of global finance. This dominance also gives the United States enormous economic influence. Because global transactions flow through dollar-based financial systems, the United States can impose powerful financial sanctions on countries that violate international rules. Access to the dollar system has become one of the most important factors in global economics and geopolitics. Yet despite its strength, the dollar's dominance is not guaranteed forever. Some nations are exploring alternatives. The euro has become a major international currency. China is promoting the use of its own currency in global trade. New financial technologies and digital currencies are beginning to reshape the landscape of international finance. But replacing the dollar is incredibly difficult. Global finance is built on networks of trust, institutions, markets, and decades of established relationships. The United States still possesses the largest and most liquid financial markets in the world. Its economy remains one of the most innovative and influential on the planet. For now, the dollar continues to stand at the center of the global financial system, a simple piece of paper that became the foundation of international trade. From the devastation of world wars to the creation of modern financial institutions, the rise of the dollar was not an accident. It was the result of history, strategy, and economic power. The United States dollar did not just become a currency, it became the currency of the world. And the real question now is not how the dollar rose to power. The real question is how long that power will last.